This is Shelley Kraft coming to you live on SNNLive. We're coming to you from the LD Micro main event in Bel Air, California, 2015. I'm with Robert Matthiessen, inTest Corporation. It's a publicly traded company, and the symbol is INTT. Bob, welcome to SNNLive.
Well, thanks, Shelley. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you. Let's go forward and give me an idea of what the company does.
Our company makes equipment that's used on final test on semiconductors. So when you buy a microprocessor from Intel, let's say, you'll know it's going to work right because our equipment has helped test it to prove that it will work right. We make equipment that's called test tools that's used with these test systems on the semiconductor test floors. In recent years, we've actually expanded out into some other vertical markets that I'd be happy to talk about. And so we're trying to grow the company in various directions, both within the semiconductor business that we've traditionally been in, and also to some outside vertical businesses.
So let me ask you a question. Where is the actual test performed, using your equipment?
Yeah. Semiconductor companies have an area they call back-end test. Once the semiconductor is manufactured and put into a package and it's ready to go to the customer, then it gets exhaustively tested for functionality and for the thermal environment it lives in, all those technical things that it has to live within in order to operate properly. So this is the last step in the semiconductor process, and it's in the last room of the semiconductor factory, if you will, so that's why they call it back end.
But meanwhile, at the end of the day, they can't put it into any equipment until it is fully tested. Am I correct?
That's correct, and part of the problem for us is that it's not a value-added situation. The part doesn't get any more valuable because you spent money on test, yet it's a necessity. So we make a critical piece of equipment that they must use.
So the semiconductor industry, is it still considered a growth industry?
When we started this business in 1981, the CAGR was maybe 20%. If you messed up, you made money. Today, the semiconductor business has matured, and its growth is approaching that of GDP. So there's not a lot of organic growth to be had in this industry anymore.
So how do you grow your business?
So there's two ways. One is, of course, organically, and that's by gaining market share, although we have significant market share in each segment we participate in. But the other way is M&A, of course, and that's where the thrust of our work is in these days, is M&A.
So are there candidates out there, or has it shrunk?
Yeah.
Has M&A been going on for years? I mean, we're talking pretty big business right now.
Yeah, well, let's look at both sides of it. M&A within the semiconductor industry has consolidated a lot of companies. I just looked at a list of companies that bought other companies this year in 2015, and every one of those companies, whether it was the acquirer or the acquiree, was one of our customers. And so suddenly where we had two customers, we have one. So yeah, there's a lot of M&A going on in the semiconductor industry, but that's not particularly helping us. We are looking to verticals outside of semiconductor, and one of our main product lines is thermal equipment that conditions things to the right temperature for being tested or whatever they want to do with them. And that business is not strictly semiconductor. It's used throughout the world in all kinds of industries. So we're going into verticals like military aerospace, communications, anything where there will be a part, maybe cell phones, right? There's a case where you've got semiconductors in a hostile environment. Your 14-year-old daughter has one and drops it. So we test it to see how tough it is. So there are the areas we're looking in that are actually outside of our traditional semiconductor world.
Well, I think that's a very smart strategy, because you're bringing this high level of expertise somehow into industries that haven't yet had the quality of testing that you could provide.
That's precisely what's happening. I'm glad you figured that out. We are bringing the traditional rules that were used in semiconductor to outside industries who are not accustomed to this level of testing, and actually finding customers who didn't know they were customers until we explained to them what we could do for them. So yes, you're right.
But in that case, you become a value add.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I tell them. So yes, yes, indeed we are. We're value in.
Now, what's your background?
I'm an engineer. I started my career, actually I started my career as a climatologist, which probably would have been better nowadays, but I don't know. I worked for Siemens Corporation for quite a few years, and then in 1981 we started inTest Corporation. Some of the fellows I worked with at Siemens and I put that together, and ever since then I've been doing this.
Well, let's make sure we give out your website so that our investor audience can get more information. So if you would.
You can find us at inTest, INTEST.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Matthiessen, inTest Corporation. It's a publicly traded company, and the symbol is INTT. I'm Shelley Kraft. This is SNNLive, and we're coming to you live from the LD Micro main event in Bel Air, California, 2015. Robert, Bob, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Shelley.